You feed your cat dry kibble. It's convenient. It's affordable. Keeps their teeth clean, right? So you've never really considered wet food. Or you tried it once, your cat ate it, and you went back to kibble because it was easier. Here's what most cat owners don't realize. Feeding only dry food is slowly changing your cat's body at a cellular level. Not dramatically, not immediately, but measurably, physiologically, in ways that might be shortening their lifespan without you ever noticing. A cat's body is designed by millions of years of evolution to get most of its hydration from prey, from moisture-rich food, from the hunt itself. When you feed only dry kibble, you're asking your cat's body to adapt to something it was never designed for. And that adaptation comes with consequences. Today at Creature Code, we're decoding what happens physiologically when cats eat only dry food, the changes in their kidney function, their urinary system, their metabolism, and their long-term health. And here's the part that might change everything. The final consequence of dry food-only diets is so normalized in veterinary medicine that most owners think it's just aging. But it's actually a preventable condition that's directly linked to feeding practices. Let's decode it. Here's what's critical to understand. Cats are obligate carnivores. This doesn't just mean they eat meat. It means their entire digestive, urinary, and metabolic system evolved to process moisture-rich prey, roughly 70 to 80% water content. A mouse is about 73% water. A bird is about 75% water. A kibble is about 10% water. Your cat's body is receiving 60 to 70% less water than it evolved to process, and you're expecting it to function normally. A 2018 study in Veterinary Medicine International found that cats fed exclusively dry food had measurably different urine concentration, kidney function markers, and metabolic patterns compared to cats with access to wet food. But here's the key. These changes happen gradually. Your cat doesn't get sick overnight, but their physiology is shifting. Let's trace what happens in your cat's body when they're eating only dry kibble. When a cat eats only dry kibble, they have to drink water to compensate. Sounds logical, right? Problem solved. Except cats are notoriously poor drinkers. Evolution designed them to get water from their food. Their thirst drive is relatively low compared to humans or dogs. A 2019 study in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that cats eating wet food consumed 20% of their daily water intake from food. Cats eating only kibble had to compensate by drinking significantly more water. But here's the problem. Most cats don't drink enough to fully compensate. The result? Chronic mild dehydration. Not acute dehydration. Your cat isn't in danger of collapse, but persistent, low-level dehydration that changes how their body functions. The consequence? This mild dehydration affects kidney function, urinary concentration, metabolism, and even cognitive function at the neurological level. A cat living in a state of chronic mild dehydration isn't thriving. They're adapting to insufficient water intake. Your cat's kidneys are filtration organs. They filter waste, regulate water balance, and maintain electrolyte balance. When your cat is chronically mildly dehydrated from dry food-only diets, their kidneys are operating under stress. They're having to concentrate urine more intensely to conserve water. They're having to work harder to filter waste from less fluid. Over time, over years, this constant stress accumulates. A 2020 study in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery found that cats fed exclusively dry food showed measurably different kidney function markers by age 5 compared to cats with regular wet food access. The difference wasn't dramatic, but it was measurable, and it was directional toward declining function. The long-term effect: by age 10, cats fed exclusively dry food showed kidney function markers consistent with early chronic kidney disease in many cases. Cats with wet food access showed significantly better kidney preservation. This isn't because wet food prevents kidney disease. It's because dry food-only diets create chronic stress on kidney function that, over decades, accelerates decline. Here's where the physiology gets critical. When urine is more concentrated, which happens when cats are dehydrated from eating only dry food, minerals in the urine are more likely to crystallize. These crystals can form stones, blockages, and urinary tract infections. A 2021 study in veterinary urology found that cats fed exclusively dry food had a 2.5x higher incidence of urinary crystals and blockages compared to cats with regular wet food access. But here's what's important. This isn't inevitable aging. This is a direct physiological consequence of chronic dehydration from dietary choices. A blocked urinary tract is a medical emergency. Male cats especially are vulnerable, and it's painful, expensive to treat, and sometimes fatal. But it's largely preventable through diet. The prevention. Regular wet food intake significantly reduces urinary crystal formation by keeping urine diluted. Dry kibble is calorie-dense and water-sparse. When your cat eats only kibble, they're eating more calories with less satiation because water provides volume without calories. A cat eating 200 calories of kibble is getting a small amount of food and a lot of calories. A cat eating 200 calories of wet food, 70% water, is getting much more volume and more satiation. The result: cats fed only dry food tend to overeat because they never achieve the same level of physical satiation. A 2019 study in appetite found that cats fed wet food showed better satiation signals and maintained healthier weights compared to cats fed exclusively kibble, even when total calories were equivalent. The consequence: weight gain, metabolic stress, and the cascade of health problems associated with obesity in cats. Here's something most owners don't consider. Your cat's digestive system adapts to whatever you feed it, but dry kibble requires different digestive processes than wet food. Different enzyme production, different gut pH, different microbiome composition. A 2020 study in microbiome found that cats fed exclusively dry food had measurably different gut microbiome composition compared to cats with wet food access. The microbiome differences were associated with subtle changes in nutrient absorption, immune function, metabolic efficiency, inflammation markers. These aren't massive changes, but they're directional toward slightly compromised digestive efficiency. A cat adapted to only kibble has a gut microbiome that's optimized for kibble processing, not for what their evolution designed them to eat. If this is shifting how you see your cat's diet, hit subscribe right now. Because at Creature Code, we're not just telling you what to feed your cat, we're showing you what happens physiologically when you don't. And understanding the mechanism changes everything. Here's where it gets subtle but significant. Chronic dehydration affects cognitive function. It affects energy levels. It affects behavior in ways that are so gradual you don't notice them. A cat living in a state of chronic mild dehydration might show reduced activity levels, lower engagement, changes in social behavior, increased sleep, subtle behavioral shifts attributed to just aging. A 2021 study in Neuroscience Letters found that mild chronic dehydration in cats was associated with measurable changes in cognitive performance and behavioral engagement. The cat doesn't get sick, but they're less vibrant, less engaged, and you think it's just their personality or aging. But it might be systemic dehydration from dietary choices. Here's the final consequence. The one that's so common in aging cats that vets assume it's inevitable. Chronic kidney disease in cats. It's one of the most common conditions in senior cats. It's one of the leading causes of cat death. And here's what the research shows. Diet plays a significant role. A 2022 meta-analysis in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery found that cats fed exclusively or primarily dry food had a 1.8x higher incidence of chronic kidney disease compared to cats with regular wet food access. Now, CKD has multiple causes. Age is a factor. Genetics is a factor. But dietary hydration status is a significant modifiable factor. The prevention. Regular wet food doesn't prevent CKD entirely, but it significantly reduces risk and slows progression if disease does develop. A cat developing CKD at age 14 instead of age 10 is a 4-year difference. That's 4 more years with your cat. Let me be clear. You don't need to feed exclusively wet food, but feeding only dry food, never providing wet food as a supplement or primary diet, is asking your cat's body to function in a state of chronic mild dehydration. The physiological consequences are real. They're measurable, and they accumulate over years. The optimal approach: wet food as a primary component, 60 to 75% of diet, high-quality kibble as supplementary, 25 to 40% of diet, or a mix that ensures adequate water intake minimum, some wet food daily. Here's what I need you to understand about dry food-only diets. It's not that kibble is toxic or dangerous. Cats can survive on dry food alone. Many do, but survival isn't thriving. When you feed only dry kibble, you're asking your cat's body to operate in a state it wasn't designed for. Chronic mild dehydration, increased kidney stress, altered urinary concentration, metabolic adaptation, digestive system changes. None of these in isolation is a death sentence. But together, over years, they accumulate. They accelerate aging. They increase the risk of serious conditions. And here's the beautiful part. This is largely preventable. Adding wet food, even just one meal daily, even just 30% of their diet, changes the entire physiological equation. Your cat's kidneys get relief. Their urine dilutes naturally. Their hydration improves. Their gut microbiome adapts. Their metabolism normalizes. You're not fighting against their biology anymore. You're working with it. So tonight, look at your cat's current diet. Ask yourself, is my cat getting moisture from their food? Or are they relying entirely on drinking water to compensate? If they're only eating kibble, consider adding wet food. Not replacing kibble entirely, just adding a wet component. Your cat's kidneys, their urinary system, and their long-term health will thank you. Drop a comment with what you're going to change about your cat's diet, the shift you're going to make, and subscribe to Creature Code, because your cat's physiology is constantly communicating through diet. And we're here to make sure you're listening.